over the dark night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star. She opened the earth, walking with blood-soaked feet. She challenged the whip, the gun, the knife. She challenged the fire, pulled from the bodies of slaves, made into laws, prisons, and courts. Screaming white-hot flames and agony, she challenged millions of headhunters, dragging and ripping apart impossible tender moments of time, shipping vessels of history, ancient history, destroying the fabric, the godlike claw of destiny, of a people with a gun, a knife, a cannon, building the hideous wall of blood called slavery.
Good afternoon, and as always, welcome back. The White House Press Corps, how the news gets made and why it matters to you. Interestingly enough, the White House Correspondents Association, the WHCA, condemned the Trump administration for a second time yesterday, following the AP's expulsion from the president's reporter pool due to an editorial decision. You know, a big part of what you hear and why you hear it and when has to do with who is telling you the story, who is in the room. What are the dynamics of the White House Press Corps? Let's connect some dots and find out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. Here's the point. We have a tendency to view current events as though they take place in a vacuum, failing to understand the broader historic context in which most events occur. During each episode of this program, my guests and I have probing, provocative, and in-depth discussions that connect the dots between the broader historic context which these events occur and their broader context. Sorry about that. Thus enabling you to better understand and analyze the events that are impacting the global village in which we live. On today's episode, the issue before us is the White House press corps. There's a lot going on in that small theater known as the James S. Brady Briefing Room in the West Wing of the White House. And let's talk to my guest. She's one of those in the room. She's the White House correspondent for AURN Radio. That stands for American Urban Radio Networks. You turn to them for a deep dive into the major political stories shaping your life and how the media is covering them. Ebony McMorris, welcome.
Thank you so much. Look, I am not just a student of yours, but it's good to be actually engaging in conversation with you, especially with such an important topic. And I'm good to be having this conversation with you, Dr. Wilmer Leon.
Well, Ebony, thank you. It is a pleasure. It is an honor. And you are one of the few that I would bring to have a discussion of this nature. Again, as I said in the open, you are one of those in the room. So let's go just to what I hit at the top. Well, a big part of what people hear, why they hear it, and when they hear it has to do with who's telling the story. Let me just throw that to you and take that. What are the dynamics of the press corps? You can take that anywhere you want to take it.
So let me just say this. So at American Urban Radio Network, where I serve as White House correspondent, we are one of two Black-owned and operated news outlets that are in that room. That just shows you how small we are as far as Black press. Now, definitely there are Black targeted outlets there, but American Urban Radio Network is the longest serving outlet, actually, for over 28 years. We are on the fourth row, second seat in. And I always refer to Allison Dunnigan, who was the first African-American to even have the press corps credentials. And she says that even though, to phrase her, our fight is just like anybody else's, right? To tell the stories, to tell the news. But on top of that, for the Black press, it is also to fight oppression. For the people who we represent in our communities. Where it gets tangled with is that we are also there with news outlets that are representing all types of agendas, some truth, some non-truth, some misinformation and disinformation. And we have seen in this administration, the president from day one, the first press briefing we had, we learned that many who had their credentials revoked, they are opening it up to the wild, wild west for news. And while that's fine and dandy, I think it makes it even more challenging for people who already felt like they were not being represented or didn't know what to believe or what not to believe. I think you're going to see a lot more information and disinformation, especially with the emergence of AI. You referred in the beginning to the incident that happened just this week when Associated Press reporter was not.
Is that breaking news you're getting?
Say it again.
Is that breaking news you're getting?
Right.
You want to break something on the show right now?
I always got to be ready. If I look down every now and then because I'm watching stuff come through.
I understand.
Report had to get out. I mean, the report had to go. The banned from White House events because they did not use the term a Gulf of America versus Gulf of Mexico. And if we do not use their language.
How stupid is that? How stupid. You don't have to answer that because I don't want to get your credentials pulled. But so to that point, understanding credentialing, and for those who may not, when I went to Milwaukee for the RNC, you had to apply to the RNC to get credentialed, to get your little badge, so they would let you in the room. When I went to the DNC in Chicago, had to apply for the pass, for the credential, so you could get into the room. So now, how do you strike the balance between objective journalism and being conscious of the narrative of the line you must toe? Heaven forbid you call the Gulf of Mexico, which it is, some fictitious name now that they want you to call it. I mean, that's idiocy.
That is the question, Wilmer, that honestly, that day, everyone was swirling and talking about. The question is, do we just all take a seat? Do we protest? Do we join together? Because again, that night, that the day that it happened, that was the first part of the day. The second part of the day is when Mark Fogel was coming home, and I was there when Trump greeted him and came into the room, and I heard someone else say, "Oh my goodness, the other AP reporter had to go too." And I was like, wow. And so I could hear the buzz. Everyone was like, what do we do? Because at this point, it looks like everyone could be picked off. This is when the press has to decide. And Black press, say this, Black press, we've always had to figure that out. We've always had, how hard do we go? What do we say? I say this honestly, in my reporting, what I am going to always do, no matter who's in office, is stick to the facts. I'm not interested in asking you, are you a racist? I'm not interested in asking you certain things. What I'm interested in is bringing the facts. Why is this happening? Giving you the numbers, giving you the data, and getting the answers back. It's just so sad that in this situation, this was just a regular, interview, and they used the term Gulf of Mexico versus Gulf of America. What do you do in that? And I'll be honest, it's a question that we've been taking up with our management for that, but AURN isn't going to bend on what we say. And we have to figure out what those consequences look like. Here's the deal. If I am still banned, if I get banned from that room, my job is to act as a link in this position between government and the public. I could stand on the outside of the White House and still get the facts. I'm being honest, because there are a lot of Black outlets that aren't in that room that still give you the facts. That still give you the information that you need. Yes, it's important to be there, but when you keep getting spin and spin and spin over again, you still have to keep coming up with the facts to inform the people. And I will tell you this, because some people were, nervous about, what if we get sued? Do we have the budgets? A lot of outlets don't have the budgets of an NBC or ABC or other outlets to fight this. I think it is also important to put it in front of the public and to lay out everything that is happening. And there can be conversation around that too, because if they don't want their voice stifled, and we're always having this question over the freedom of speech, are you not doing that? Is that also not a violation? And the punishment is you can't come to a White House event. I mean, that's not going to muzzle me from talking. Now, this was the Associated Press, but as a group, the WHCA, we've seen the statements come out from Eugene Daniels, who is the WHCA president at the moment, who is African-American. He works for Politico. It's still an ongoing conversation about what will happen, and it's going to happen again.
So just not to belabor the point, but so that everybody can be very clear on this, the White House has barred an AP reporter from the press corps for referring to the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of Mexico instead of the Gulf of America. And just for the record, I think it's the International Hydrographic Association that is actually responsible for naming bodies of water around the world. So even though what's the woman's name? She's a House of Representatives. She got into that big argument with the sister.
Jasmine Crockett. He's about Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, is over the House committee that is responsible for naming things domestically. Mm-hmm. But what she decides to do domestically has nothing to do with how the world views the world. So,
and that is an international body. Like, people don't that's an international body of water. And so you can't do that, but we have seen, and here's the thing about that. So I think this is symbolic of what we are seeing across the case. They can't do it. They did it. And what happens? Google changes the name. So when you go look it up, you see what? Gulf of America.
Really? I haven't even checked. To me, it was so idiotic.
I read this morning. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To me, it was so idiotic that I never even thought. I didn't even realize it had actually been done.
Wait to see what maps begin to change. That's what I'm waiting. And here's the thing: whether they cannot, people will fall in line, and people have been falling in line. We have been seeing that when it comes to these court cases about how far this administration can go with DOGE, what's happening with these hiring freezes. I mean, everyday folks that are at home are trying to figure out, can I not? I've gotten so many calls from federal workers saying, should I have taken this fork in the road buyout or no? People were saying, no, they can't do that. I think we're slightly going beyond can they do that? Because then you had a Massachusetts judge that then went back and upheld some of the things that this administration wanted to do. You got to understand, when you got the House, you got the Senate, right, you got the executive office, you got the Supreme Court, so you can appeal. Like, fine, we'll obey it. We'll just appeal to what? Mm-hmm. Appeal the Supreme Court. Well, who controls the Supreme Court? You already basically said he's a king. He's immune. And if he says that this is in the best interest of the nation, we are seeing things that, Wilmer, we all have to go back to. Well, you probably don't, but I do. Look up stuff. What page is that on? But we ain't never seen that. Okay, well, somebody go back to 18 so-and-so because this has never been done. That is the day we are in. If I hear more reporters say, can he? We're talking to attorneys. I'm talking to the ACLU. And they're saying, well, this is wrong. He can't do this. I'm like, okay, but can he? What happens if he defies the orders of the court? You are not going to come in. With anybody getting arrested in this situation?
One thing I want to go back to quickly when you talked about falling in line, and it's amazing to me that Mitch McConnell is the only senator so far that has not fallen in line. But the interesting thing is, this demonstrates Mitch McConnell has no power.
I was going to say that. Why? We always see them do this when they either about to leave, they don't have any power, then they want to speak truth to power. But really, he ain't had no power. Mitch McConnell should have been speaking out a long time ago, honestly.
Oh, absolutely.
You want, okay, that's fine on this one, but you should have been speaking out when all those executive orders came out, because you were in line, McConnell, with Project 2025 anyway.
In fact, there's one thing I've said, you've probably heard me say this. You can't compromise for the sake of political expediency on the front end and then try to claim the moral high ground on the back end. And that's all Mitch McConnell. This is sour grapes for Mitch McConnell. But the bigger thing to me is in this last vote, and I can't remember what the issue was. But it was confirming Robert Kennedy.
Why? Because it directly affected him over the issue of having polio. Self-interest.
But my point is, Mitch, you wielded all this power as the Senate Majority Leader. You wielded all of this power for all of these years, and you couldn't find two more people to side with you. Everybody ran from Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, for as long as he's been in the Senate, for as long as he's been, I compare and contrast that to Lyndon Johnson and the power that Lyndon Johnson wielded and how he was able to pick up the phone and call folks and say, look, let me tell you how this is about to roll. And if you don't roll with me, I'm going to roll over you. And go ahead. You get my point.
No, first of all, McConnell been serving since 1985. Okay.
Right.
And he didn't, at this point in his reign, he didn't froze in front of us several times. This man is hanging on, and I don't even know, and you correct me if I'm wrong, we're seeing a slight, not even slight, we're seeing a changing of the guards within both parties in one way, because Democrats, you're seeing more progressives come in. We'll figure out what that looks like. But even with the Republican Party, the changing of the guard, where we were railing against Republicans on some issues, but now this whole MAGA party.
Right.
And I think Trump is actually like even on the soft end of the MAGA party. I'm serious. Like the extreme end looks like who he now has running Doge, Elon Musk. Right.
Well, let me explain to you why.
These South African colonial like colonizers. You explain to me why. What you see?
Well, it's because the reason that Donald Trump is on the soft end of the MAGA party is because he has no ideological mooring. He has no ideological compass. He's a transactional human being. So Steve Bannon, I think one of the reasons why Steve Bannon and Donald Trump fell out was because Steve Bannon is ideologically wedded to his thing.
America first, and you got Elon bringing all white folk in.
South Africa,
right? He don't care where from. He's like, no, U.S. first, period.
But Donald Trump. So Steve Bannon is an ideological purist. You can debate whether you believe in what Steve Bannon believes in or not, but Steve Bannon believes in it.
Right.
Donald Trump doesn't believe in anything other than Donald Trump. So, as they say, whoever the last person to leave the room that's in his ear is the direction he's going to go. That's why you've got the Freedom Caucus.
Yeah.
Is even further to the right, or as right as the MAGA people.
Right. This is not about government efficiency. And for anyone who thought that it was, I don't even believe you actually thought that. This is about consolidating power, crushing any kind of dissent, and dismantling democracy from within. And if Doge to me is blatantly unconstitutional.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows how quickly these courts are going to act to dismantle it. But when you actually own many of the courts, in some ways, it doesn't matter. And these long-term impacts, I don't even want to say long-term, because right now, when we're experiencing them, you got food sitting in ports. It's literally rotting.
Right.
And I know a lot of times what they do. I was in the room when Elon Musk rambled with his son standing there. And he said when Trump was signing the executive order on Doge, and he said that he wanted to go after low income earners that had a high net of wealth. And he said, how are they getting this money? Because maybe we need to figure out how they're investing. This is a man who we have seen, $8 million a day he makes, over 100 contracts, defense. Not one of his contracts have been messed up at all. Who has paid zero in taxes, who is now telling people that you want to go after low income earners and you're trying to figure out how they have established any type of wealth. And it makes me think of the quote, you can help me with this, when Lyndon B. Johnson's quote on picking a white man's pockets, where he says, if you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best color man, he won't notice that you're picking his pocket. He'll give him somebody to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you. At the end of the day, the situation is breaking all of America. And there are some people who are still wedded to this idea, who will die on the vine of this. I'm like, America, are rural farmers that are living way out. This is affecting you too. Take African American off the table. Take all of that off, because that ain't never win no discussion anyway, y'all. I'm talking about rural white America.
Lyndon Johnson said, if you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on and he'll empty his pockets for you.
So Trump pushes DEI all day long because you think DEI is just black folk. Meanwhile, veterans, he talking about you. White women, you at the front of the line. Guess what? Asians, Indians, disabled. He definitely talked about you when he was talking about when the plane crashed over the Potomac. He went down that list that was just crazy, and he came straight for those who were disabled. And I was like, wow, y'all, America, are you seeing this? Or you want to stick with this?
And 2 points there. One is, as he talked about DEI being the cause of the crash, what we now find out is the co-pilot was a white woman whose family does not want her name released because their family is afraid that the Trump administration will make her the target of their ire. And to the Lyndon Johnson quote, that reminds me of, I was watching this documentary about Appalachia, and they were interviewing, this was years ago, and they were interviewing this retired coal miner, and this was the oldest, nastiest looking dude you'd ever want to see. Dirty overalls, dirty, hadn't shaved in 9 days, had tobacco juice. And he looked in the camera and he said to the reporter, I may be poor, but I sitting in front of this shack looking like Jed Clampett's uncle. And he said, I may be poor, I may not have nothing, but at least I ain't no
fill in the blank.
That's
and he'll keep letting you pick his pockets. He'll keep letting you pick his pockets. And so America, you wanted it. And you wanted it. You got it. And,
talk about being in the room. Talk about, because the standard protocol is when you go into the Oval Office, you wear a suit and a tie. So here's, and I think that pretty much people know Donald Trump doesn't like kids.
You could tell that he turned just like that with that little. I'm not gonna lie, with that little boy walking in just like that.
So talk about the vibe and the dynamic. Here is Elon Musk with a t-shirt on and a hat. I guess his thing is, I'm so rich, you can't tell me anything. I don't have to follow protocol.
But listen, remember when they got on Obama from wearing the tan suit?
Right.
Remember when they were getting even on Hakeem Jeffries because the shoes he wore were like rubber on the bottom? I forgot what the brand is. Cole. I can't remember the name. They were getting on him about
Cole Haan? Not Cole
They
Haan.
were Cole Haan. They were like the dressy Cole Haans, but they kind of had like a little tennis shoe on the bottom of them.
Oh,
meanwhile, we got Fetterman walking through with shorts on, like and sweatshirts on, looked like he just got off the basketball court or rolled out of bed or doing errands. And we have Elon Musk, and decorum has gone out of the window. Michelle Obama, they wrote her for showing her arms. America picks and chooses a portion of America.
Right.
What they like and what they don't like. I was in the room when that was going on. You know what I was thinking about though more, and I've been just sitting with myself to think about this, what it meant for his son to be there. And I've heard analysis about it. He calls his son like his emotional something or other. Almost like an emotional pet, but it's his son.
Right.
But to me, it was almost like wielding dominance. There's something about, people were talking about, oh my God, having the kid in there and Donald Trump didn't like him, but what does it mean for you? It's almost like, first of all, you see his son is growing up to be just like him. But what is it for you to have your son in that room? And what is the dominance that you're trying to show the world? This wasn't just about America. This was about the world. It's almost like, look, son, this is what you're about to inherit too.
Look at what I bought for $270 million.
You see how much this man has made just from him being
Yeah.
America. Don't you see this? What did James Baldwin say? Something like, he didn't, this is paraphrasing, to be a Black man and woke in America is to be in a constant state of rage.
Yes.
That's how I feel sometimes. Like, to really be woke is to be in a constant state of rage. And I need people to say that, because this man said he's coming after, first of all of the things that, all of this money that they said they have found, when you fact check most of it, first of all, it never leads, in the money trail never leads back to what they say. So they tried to hit you with the $50 million in condoms for Hamas,
right.
Which that was a dead end, but America still bought it. He even admitted it.
Mm-hmm.
When he got called out. He said, well, I mean, sometimes we may not say things that are true, but he said, you call me out and then I'll try to go back and correct. What? Honestly, Wilmer, I didn't even know where to start in that room. Or that earlier that morning, I was there when King Abdullah had his news.
Oh, you were there.
I asked the question.
Oh, okay.
I asked the question because Trump kept saying, oh, it's beautiful. They'll be in beautiful places and this will create peace in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, what if it does not create peace in the Middle East? Because you have said that it's going to be lovely. It's going to be for whatever. I said, but for people who say, this is mine, this is where I am from, what are the repercussions? Because while he said this, he's never said, what are the consequences for those who fight back and who don't want to go?
Mm-hmm.
He skates around that issue, and he didn't really answer it. He just said that it's going to be really beautiful. What's going to be beautiful? And King was sitting there. I'm like, no, what's the I know your version of peace is not the U.S. coming in and creating these hotels.
The thing that the comparison that I drew, watching Abdullah sit there and listen to Trump ramble,
right,
was Olaf Scholz and Joe Biden, when Joe Biden was asked about Nord Stream, and he said, oh, we're not going to let them turn that up. And they said, well, wait a minute, Mr. President, that's not our pipeline. Trust me, we're not going to let them turn that up. And Olaf Scholz sat there like the dummy on the knee of the ventriloquist.
Uh-huh.
And Abdullah came across to me the same way.
I was sitting there like, what? And when I was coming in, I did a short interview with some protesters outside that were saying, look, we're here to support our king, but Jordan for Jordanians and Palestine for Palestinians. He was like, you keep the rest. There were a lot of people that were gathering and that were yelling out. And I said, what is your message? He said, that's our only point. He was like, that's not about to happen. That's not about to happen. I guess it is a wait and see game, because we have these tariffs that the president has put in place that are going to hurt the American people so badly, hurt the connections I believe that we have. It's so much, even as a reporter, to try to cover everything at the same time. But Steve Bannon said that was part of their strategy. He said that a while back. Just to throw so much at them.
Oh, yes. Yeah, flooding the zone.
Flooding the zone. And
he also called it the muzzle blast.
So that's one of the challenges, I would say, even as a reporter sometimes, is keeping the main thing, because there are so many important things and they're all connected. How can I talk about the tariffs but not talk about other countries? How can I talk about these hiring freezings, when I can't, when I also need to talk about what's happening with the U.S. aid? I want to talk about what's happening in South Africa, the displacement of Black farmers. You've got Elon Musk defending white farmers who own over 80% of the land, saying that they've been disenfranchised, but yet you say nothing about Black farmers here. I'm covering the president of Black farmers, John, his name escapes me right now, but who's in court right now suing because they did not get the money that was under ARPA that was promised to them under the Biden administration. I have to connect that to what's happening in South Africa. And do you realize the day that EO was signed, Wilmer, was the same day that I believe, was it the anniversary of the end of apartheid? I believe. I have to double check on that.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a connection with the anniversaries. And I was wondering, is that a reason why he did that, to overshadow the anniversary? Like, it's also connected. It was either that or when Mandela got out. But it was almost a slap in the face, though, to South Africans to have that executive order on that day. And to me, it just showed how much he wants to stick to colonization. But I don't.
Do you?
How do you stay balanced? Because how do you do it? Because you deal a lot more so than anyone that I really know when it comes to international relations. And so most people don't see that there's a connection.
Right.
When you say made in the USA or whatever, no, baby, that also goes right through China before you get that sticker put on it. All that your iPhone that you carry is linked right back to Africa. What we're seeing in the continent is affecting us here. So there is no such thing like that, really.
So I'm. What was your question to me? How do I what?
How do you maintain? How do you deal with all of this as well? Because you see the bigger picture more than I think what most people do. You see how it all connects.
Well, I hence the show, Connecting the Dots.
Right.
It is. I try to. That's a very good question, because I try to stay as analytical about this as I possibly can, and I do everything in my power to disassociate myself personally from the analysis that I do. I tell my students all the time, you can't allow your emotions to get mixed into the analysis.
That's so hard sometimes, Wilmer.
Oh, I know.
It is. I hear you in my head when I'm in there. And on that point, I'll tell you another one that you always said when I was doing some producing for you. You used to always talk about how people really have not mastered the art of critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And how it is so rare. And so when I'm in there and I'm listening, I'm trying to dissect past all the bull that they say to get to the substance. And I'm telling you, I come up short sometimes, I promise you. But
because there's not a whole lot of substance.
Oh, but it's dizzying. It's dizzying trying to figure out how to keep the main thing. I don't know.
We understand that Donald Trump does not like anybody to overshadow him. And many believe that was one of the big issues, one of the other big issues that he had with Steve Bannon, was that not only is Steve Bannon ideologically wedded and Donald Trump is ideologically not, but that Steve Bannon started to take on, I mean, he went to Brazil and helped to get Bolsonaro in Brazil elected, using the same platform that he used with Donald Trump. I can't see Elon Musk lasting. I have no timeline, but because I think there was a meme, you probably saw it. It was a picture taken of little X, Elon's son, looking at Donald Trump, and the caption was, "Why are you sitting in my daddy's chair?"
Ooh. I wonder if we're going to see that little boy, and we're going to see little X in future meetings, because that overshadowed everything. I mean, you're right. Elon is a bigger version of Steve. I mean, a worse version of Bannon. The egos in that room, it's unbelievable. But I think for us, again, that are reporting this, you got to follow the information. You got to field past the disinformation, which can be challenging, especially when you have big media conglomerates that are also bowing and kissing the ring. You have Elon, who owns Twitter. You have IG, owned by Zucker, and Facebook, by Meta. And when, I was doing some research working with some Howard students, and I asked, where do you get most of your information from? They get their news from TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, God.
They didn't even say connecting the dots.
They didn't even say connecting the dots. He said TikTok. And I'm just like, and so I'm asking, what are some of the things that you're seeing? And when I brought my intern into the White House, Howard University intern into the White House, not too long ago, he said, I've been missing out on news. And he sat in disbelief. I actually was able to bring him into the rooms with me when Trump did his thing and he signed executive orders. And I said, are you all talking about this conversation? He said, no, I didn't really get it until I got here. He said, and I feel it, especially being a Black man. He said, things are like making sense to me just off of that first day. Off the press briefing and off Donald Trump and then the media, and he's hearing the questions that the other reporters are asking. And he's like, that is, some of them, he was like, that's dumb. That doesn't make sense. I said, that's what this is about. It's about fighting to get your voice heard, fighting against oppression, and then trying to come back and then help your own people, who some of them you have to take the blinders off as well, because you're in the room where you see what's really happening, the spin. It's a lot.
Well, first of all, if your intern had been from Hampton, you probably wouldn't. But
I don't even know.
That's a conference. That's another show. We'll do that. We'll do that show later. But to your point, when I walk into the classroom every day, the first thing I say to my kids is, what happened today? Tell me something that happened today. And they look at me and they blink. For the first week, that's what I was getting. Now they know they need to be prepared because that question comes every morning. So tell me, y'all, what happened today?
Right.
Tell me something domestic. Tell me something foreign. What happened today? And now I'm starting to get some rhythm. Now I'm starting to get some answers that I want to hear. And then, so why does this matter to you? So that's the next thing. Now, they know at least, well, we got to tell Dr. Leon something, or else he's going to stand here and yell at us for the next 10 minutes. So why does it matter to you? Trying to get to the critical thinking aspect. And these are poli-sci students. And I'm telling them, y'all can't sit here in a political science class and not tell me what's happening in the world. Now they're starting to get it.
But this is a generation where, recent studies have shown these graduates, they were looking at like young supervisor managers that had just come out, just graduated or whatever, who admitted they hadn't even read a whole book. You done gone through all your life. You've never read a whole book from cover to cover. Like, these are people who are on the precipice of becoming our next leaders. This is what we're dealing with. This is what we're dealing with. And we trying to figure out the Republican and Democratic Party that now. Yeah, that's your people. These students.
I gave them an assignment, 5 pages. And when 5 pages, I said, son, let me tell you something. When I took Black seminar from Dr. Walters, 10 pages every Monday. When you walked into the room for class on Monday, there was at least a 10-page paper you had to put on his desk before you took your seat. Every week. So I said, son, don't tell me. I want to hear it. Anyway, let's move on. Getting back to this cutting of personnel. One of the things that Donald Trump railed against the Biden administration was veterans, and how the Biden administration was not taking care of veterans. From what I understand, the VA now has lost at least 1,000 employees as a result of cutting the government.
Yeah.
A department that was already light on already light, now they've lost 1,000 more folks.
And they're talking about wanting to cut even more. I will say this. One group that tends to push back, I think, the hardest and get an ounce, maybe more of respect are veterans,
Mhm.
because you tend to have congressional members, Republicans, as well as Democrats, push back a little harder when it comes to our veterans. But we have to be honest about how we have been treating or not treating our veterans, who, when you talk about the issue of veterans, you cannot detach the issue of homelessness,
Mhm.
cannot detach the issue of mental health and care. And because they're because of the services that many of them use, those services are being cut. I've talked to people like who have run certain organizations and whose money has been frozen, they've been locked out, and they haven't been able to, or who are threatening to shut down, who don't know what to do. But while this administration keeps posting pictures, and even during the White House briefing, of what they call illegal immigrants, they call them illegal aliens,
Mhm.
and showing what they do, at the same time, they are ignoring the people in their own backyard who have served this country, who have laid down their lives for this country, who who should be one of the first people that we take care of in this economy, and we don't. And it's sad. And while, here's the thing, even when we see Republicans speak out against it, they then still in the end will line up with him.
Mhm.
We saw that in the hearings, even with RFK
Mhm.
coming forward in his nomination. You had the senator who railed against what he did, but in the end, he lined up.
And he's
Just
a
like
doctor.
everybody else.
He's a physician.
Exactly. He said, well, we've talked about it, and what he's going to do is he's going to share with me his studies, and I'm going to share with him mine. But at the end, you just named him HHS secretary.
Right.
It does not make sense. Is that pot of gold worth it in the end?
And here's what we know. We know that I think measles are on the rise. Outbreaks of measles, I think it is, in Texas.
Yeah.
We know that that there's an increase in flu.
Bird flu. Who, don't forget, they cut the advisories off that people were getting.
Mhm.
They cut that off, so you didn't even know what was happening. You had towns. There was one town in Texas that had like 3,000 people. 1,000 were sick from the flu. Kids not being able to show up in classrooms. And they're saying with this bird flu, they were trying to get the notice out that if you have someone that comes in, to first separate them, because that's something that is highly contagious, and they definitely don't want that spreading. I don't think people really realize the ramifications of all of this. And even when we cut aid to other countries that helps with disease and helps with HIV, and he was talking about cutting even HIV in this country, PrEP drugs,
Mhm.
which is extremely important. It has definitely helped to cut back on the rate of people catching HIV/AIDS. And I'm just like, I don't know what the end of this 4 years is going to look like. The mental and physical health of this country, literally. I don't know.
So cutting to your point, cutting USAID funding, and I'm no fan of USAID, understanding that they're to a great degree a front agency for the CIA as it relates to regime change operations. But with that having been said, there is some benefit that comes from USAID, and HIV medication is one of them. And we know that, and this is what's one of the things that's odd to me, because South Africa is disproportionately affected by the cutting off of this aid.
Right.
So what the medication has been able to do is keep the viral loads suppressed to indetectable rates, which means when they at least the studies say, when the load gets low enough, it then becomes non-transmissible.
Yeah.
But if you deny that patient their medication for 2 to 3 weeks, the load starts to develop back in their bodies, and you then put yourself on a very, very perilous, dangerous path of greater transmission rates.
Absolutely. I mean, whether we're dealing with the physical condition of this country, or whether, I mean, we're seeing the cutting of USAID, we're seeing Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, he can stop everything there. I don't think, I'm going to keep saying this, I really don't think people understand the ramifications of that. And I don't carry water for any administration. I don't. But I can go down the list of the orders that happened under the Biden administration and give you numbers on how they help, whether it be from student loan, from cutting student loan debt that was heavily really affecting Black America. We were seeing even, there was a report that came out that people were saying, oh, I didn't get loan forgiveness. How can they get loan forgiveness? They're just going to waste the money. And then you saw actually people taking that money and putting it into purchasing homes. You saw debt being lifted up off of people. And at every end, here's the interesting thing. Republicans fought. It was hard to really understand that loan forgiveness because it kept changing so much. But why? Because Republicans kept on filing suit after suit after suit after suit. Now what's happening? You have suit after suit being filed against what President Trump is doing, and Republicans saying, no, you can't do that. They shouldn't be able to stop his executive powers. You weren't crying that song during the Biden administration when y'all filed suit after suit. Now you are saying that he has powers that the Senate should not be able to interfere with. And the judges are like, not quite. That's not true. But it is, there's another, it's dizzying. It's dizzying. So now what's going to happen with a lot of the fees that we saw cut before? What's going to happen when it comes to Medicaid and Medicare? We've already seen the Republican budget that has come out that has slashed Medicaid. Who does that affect the most?
So here's my question.
To me or
well, to anybody listening, but to you, since you are my guest.
Yes.
Where are the Democrats?
The Democrats.
Where is Hakeem Jeffries? Nancy Pelosi has told us the Democrats don't need to change anything. Hakeem Jeffries sits back. He does a lot of chattering, but most of what I take away from what he says is, well, we will see what will happen when it happens. Wrong answer, homeboy. You got to be out there on the front line every day, making the clarion call. You
changing up your language and your strategy. The one issue, it's sad that I feel like I can go down the list of what the Biden administration did better than the Biden administration. At this point, Trump has made this a states game. It's a states game. So my question is, every day, do we see and hear you all on the ground using everyday language? Because don't forget, that's how Trump also really won over people. People laugh at him about his vocabulary, which seems very limited, but it was enough to get people to say he speaks my language. The question for Democrats is, are you speaking the people are you speaking their language? Do they know? I always say, stop. People fought me on this. I was like, stop using the word democracy sometimes. It's like, no, tell me how it's affecting literally the money that's going on in my pocket. Tell me what I'm not going to have. Tell me how this really like day to day affects me. I need you to go to places where there are Republican trifectas. African Americans in particular live in mostly southern states, the largest being Texas, where the majority of us live. Many of these states, even in Mississippi, these are states that have some of the most highest Black unemployment, some of the lowest levels of education, and how they wind up with the Republican trifecta over and over again is beyond me. And then you have voters say, I don't want to vote because it doesn't do anything for me. The problem isn't that people, the biggest problem is that people are not coming out and voting and then holding those that they're voting for accountable, and then themselves trying to figure out who in our community do we need to have on our school boards. Don't forget how Moms of Liberty was able to come in with a very small group of people and go nationwide, but they built in the dark. And I think with Democrats in many areas, we have seen them on these national stages, but I need to see how you hitting the ground in your states, in these counties. What are you doing? And I need you to amplify your voice, because you're missing people. You're missing some of your own people.
Jesse Jackson Jr., as Biden was leaving office, was leading the campaign to get the Biden administration to pardon. The number he used was 77 million nonviolent felons who had served their terms.
Yeah.
And he was leading the charge to get them pardoned.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party missed an incredible, and what brought this to mind was your question about people in Mississippi, poor people in Texas saying, what's going to be the impact on my life?
Yeah.
And I was saying during the Biden administration, so imagine the impact when little JoJo comes in at the picnic holding up his letter saying he got his pardon.
You could have done that and you would have freed up a whole voting block of people.
That's my point.
A whole vote. That angered me. The way I'm not going to lie, I felt like, all right, Biden, Kamala ain't getting in office. You ain't got nothing to lose. She ain't got nothing to lose. I need you to go back with a bang, because he's coming in with both of his middle fingers up in the air, pointed at you. Why don't you go out the same way? Why? And I wasn't a McCain fan, but baby, when McCain went like this, and then was up out of here on his way to glory not too long after that,
right?
I needed Biden to go out like that, and you didn't go hard enough. Yes, I can name the things that you did that I really love, but you could have gone out and made such a bold statement that would have had people not quoting what you did with the crime bill. That's why I'm saying I don't carry no man's water.
That would have been the second Emancipation Proclamation. He could have become, Black people became Republicans because of the party of Lincoln. We started making our transition to the Democratic Party after the after FDR and the I'm drawing a blank on the New Deal. The New Deal. And then we became solidly Democrat. We understand politics.
We do. We
We are not blind and following Barack Obama like lemmings off a cliff.
No,
we don't understand politics.
I think the difference is when we get angry, we just sit down because we get tired.
Well, because we're frustrated.
MAGA will go harder and harder and harder. Because when people said Black folk came out, when the numbers came back, it wasn't true. But no, Black men wasn't lining up for Trump like that.
Right.
Now, the numbers didn't show that, but they did show we weren't coming out. And I have to pause there because I know you talked with Greg Palast, who has a great new documentary out that kind of questions what happened. Did Biden really win? Because that's honestly a conversation that most media is not going to tackle. But here's the deal with that. Whether you believe Kamala really won or not, there was so much voter disenfranchisement going on. There was so many of us getting kicked off the rolls by the millions. And now we have this SAFE Act that Republicans are trying to push through that will cause even more people getting kicked off the rolls. I need people to understand there's a serious game plan that they have. And it's been in motion. It was in motion before he stepped into office. That's why people are like, Democrats, where your book at? Where's your response to Project 2025? Where is it?
Well, there you go. That's the question.
Where the book, Wilmer?
Where is your defense? Or defense, depending on where you're from. We know Project 2025. We know, what is it, Plan 47.
They didn't even deviate from it. They denied it and didn't deviate from it, and then hired everybody that wrote it. Then J.D. Vance, who wrote the forward, is now your vice president.
But you claim you know nothing about it.
Say you know nothing, but you still steady playing. You steady playing in people's faces. And they believe it. They eating it up. They drinking the Kool-Aid. But Democrats, I need you to do better.
So a couple of other issues. So how is this whole deportation issue playing in the press room, especially since he sent 100 and some odd folks to Guantanamo Bay? How's that playing?
I know you were rolling over when that came out, because I remember the shows you used to do on Guantanamo Bay. That was the first thing I thought. I was like, oh, I know Wilmer is rolling over when he hears his story. I remember producing those stories. You know, there are a lot of stories that I feel like should get more play.
Mm-hmm.
That's one that I don't think is getting enough play. I think sometimes reporters spend too much time on trying to ask the why questions that we already know the answers to,
Mm-hmm.
right? But not the questions like, we need the details of the who, what, when, where, and why of this. And Guantanamo Bay is one of them. Including in that is them wanting to, with Mark Rubio, now the Secretary of State or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to send prisoners.
Venezuelan? Oh, go ahead.
To prison. No, yeah. And is it Venezuela or El Salvador setting up prisons there?
Well, it's El Salvador where he wants to send the president of El Salvador.
Well, he didn't say it.
Offered to Marco Rubio,
right,
to take American prisoners in El Salvador.
Who you think they're coming for? That was the first thing. You know, my mind always goes black, right? Cause state of rage. I'm like, wait a minute. So does that mean our brothers and sisters that y'all keep targeting anyway? Who are you coming for? Because they try to disguise that, oh no, people that are illegals. But then if you keep reading the fine print, no, that's all y'all. But we are targeting more than any other group. Who are you coming for? And for Pookie and Ray and
don't forget Lil Man.
Lil Man.
And Man.
Not Lil X, not the one that was on his shoulders with his father, not the colonizer. No, like, yeah.
And here's the play that Trump will make. Because Marco Rubio didn't say no. What he said was, no one has ever made an offer like that. We're going to have to go back and examine this. And what you'll find out all of a sudden, 200,
find out where the money is.
400 brothers on their way to El Salvador, and Donald Trump will say, send it to the courts.
Because what that means is, let me find out how much money we can make. That's all that means. Anytime they pause is because they want to do a quick calculation. Not about how it disenfranchises Americans, but how much it fills their pockets and picks yours.
And the other thing that I was referencing were the Venezuelans, particularly in South Florida, that had backed Trump.
I mean, backed them all the way, Wilmer. I mean, carried his water and now crying, talking about, I didn't know it was. Why didn't you?
I've been hoodwinked. I've been bamboozled and led astray.
So I have no tears for you. I have no tears for you.
Now they're on their way back to Venezuela. Bye, Felicia.
Bye, Felicia. Bye, Consuela. I can't. That's why I can't talk to you more, because I'll start talking like it's just me and you. Bye. That's what you wanted, you got it.
You wanted, you got it.
One-way ticket. You know, but I am concerned about what will happen with Haitians. Right? Because there's always another conversation when we talk about that. But when we talk about Haitians, or those darker melanated people who we saw even when the administration under Biden was trying to do something, there was a problem with the app. We couldn't even recognize the color if you was too dark. I mean, it is things like that. So that's a question that's been raised. Also a question of, when we talk about immigration and getting people out of the country, why is this you're only going for these two areas? What about Europeans that are here that ain't supposed to be here?
Mm-hmm. Au pairs from Ireland.
What people who've overstayed their visas, because that's actually a larger number. That's a larger number, right? But you're not. So if that's the case, Wilmer, you could educate all of us, and I can, on when we have seen this country, other countries, go through this ethnic cleansing, right? And ethnic cleansing to also lighten the population. I don't think America's watching. And this is history that is still repeating itself. It's still the same game. New characters, but it's the same book.
It is the same. It is this, Carol, thank you for your super sticker. Raven Allen, thank you so much for your super. There we go. And Raven says we need to keep our citizenship, but go overseas and build generational wealth because it won't happen here. Go ahead.
I agree. So I do a show called Business for the Culture on Fridays, and I just had a gentleman on who is taking people over to Ghana. We saw what happened with Ghana now that opening up with their visas. I talk with your producer Mal about this all the time. Different countries now, or the places where you see the largest number of Black expats, whether that be in Madeira and Mexico. Ghana is one of them.
Panama.
Panama is absolutely one of them. But I honestly believe with your guest, because I feel like, and this is a whole nother conversation, that there are ways that we can invest where our money will go longer overseas. I have a few friends who have done that themselves, and they're like, Ebony, you got to open up your horizons because it ain't been it's not hitting for you like you want it to in this country. And so that is a conversation that I have been just kind of digging into. What does that investment look like? What does having dual citizenship look like? Where are the best places to do that? But I don't know. It's not something that I can necessarily educate the public on, but it is something that I absolutely agree with your listener on. I think that we need to expand our horizons beyond the U.S. And I think we need to look at ourselves like a global majority. And when we begin to serve in other places, serve in other countries, I think that it'll serve ourselves even better. That's what I believe.
Well, a couple of things. One, Cherise says this conversation reminds her of Flip Wilson and Red Fox.
What? Hey, which one am I? I want to be real.
She's laughing that much.
I'm supposed to be serious. I am a White House reporter, but Wilmer, I love talking to you.
Well, and this is what we always do. But so where do people go to find you? Let people know where they can go to find you.
Well, at the end of this year, I don't know where you're going to go to find me. But for right now, while I am still on the radar and while we are still called the United States of America, online, I'm across all social media at Ebony McMorris, That's my handle. My daily reports are at AURN.com. But for most of my interviews that I do, while it's on the website, the best place I would say is to go to our YouTube page, which is AURN. And then you'll see all of the interviews that I've done with congressional members. You'll see I have a very serious side as well. The interviews that I've done with the different administrations and the heads and people who are on the ground. My biggest thing is not just interviewing those who are in a position of power, but those who are in the community making a difference, because it's no need for me to explain and break down what happens unless I'll also give you some direction on what you do next. I'm not here to fearmonger, but I am also here to uplift you, to help you get to a better economic empowerment.
This new press secretary. Well, okay, that answers that. Let's
Caroline Leavitt.
Well,
right.
What was the basis of your response?
I will say this because everyone has asked what I think. We haven't had as many press briefings, so I will say in this administration, things are going to be very different. If I were a Republican official, I would love her. Why? Because she is doing the job that they gave her to do. Okay. She is standing 10 toes down, whether it's a lie or truth. And people are believing it. Now, for those of us who are woke and are attentive, we can see straight through it. But she looks the part, she sounds the part, she spins the part all day long. That's And don't
Didn't Karine
forget,
Jean-Pierre do that though?
Wilmer, why are you doing that?
No. Didn't she stand at that point? And I'm asking, I'm
No,
not saying
I don't
this,
think Karine came out the box like we've seen Caroline come out the box.
oh well, no, maybe not come out the box, but once
They
she
all do. Some do it better than others. I think Jen Psaki
right.
was. I think Caroline Leavitt is almost like the Republicans for like Jen Psaki was for the Democrats.
Okay. And what do you
Very
mean by
rarely
that?
did you see Jen Psaki looking down at her notes or going forward. I mean, she was speaking to the press and to Americans like she wrote it herself and she believes it all. I think we saw that. And I think that's important. We're talking about a press secretary. Your job is to carry the water for the president.
Mm-hmm.
Your job is to do
Was
that.
that Donald Trump asking how to get my number?
Right.
That wasn't it? Okay.
Right. That's what your job is to be an effective communicator.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean you have to tell the truth.
Right.
It means
you got to tell the president's narrative.
Exactly. And I think that she does that.
So, and again, I wasn't asking that question in any way, shape, or form to condemn or to say anything negative about Karine Jean-Pierre. I was trying to make the point that she was 10 toes down articulating the administration's narrative.
They all do. Some are more convincing than others.
Okay.
They all do. That's her job. So is she doing her job? She's doing it well. Don't forget when we saw Sean Spicer, remember in the Trump's first administration, that poor baby fell apart. I mean, he was spiraling all over the place and then just kind of going up. It's a very erratic behavior. They had to pull him down.
Spicy.
Right. Poor Sean. I mean, they had a whole SNL skit on him. It was just like, oh my goodness. And then you had Sarah Huckabee come in, who is now governor. That's a huge jump. I don't know if it was me. I was like, governor. You had Sarah Huckabee.
Yeah, but that was her dad, though. She rode her father's coattails. Right.
Most DEI appointed people I've ever seen. But, and I mean, didn't earn it. That's what I mean by DEI.
So here's my final question for you. The president comes out and talks about his 90-minute phone call with President Putin. You've got Hegseth at NATO talking about, look, folks, Ukraine, you're not gonna get any land back. Ukraine, you're not gonna join NATO. That's not gonna happen. We need to find a way to get out of this mess. And then Trump says, and I thought this was funny, he says to Putin, I'm going to call Zelensky and bring him up to date. So Volodymyr Zelensky isn't even in the conversation. Mm-hmm. So, but now NATO's coming back saying to Trump, hey man, you can't do this without us.
Yeah,
hey, man. So they seem to be trying to find a way out. And Donald Trump's easy answer is, Robert Brown, thank you very much for that super sticker. Trump seems to be, I told you not to get in the mess in the first place.
Yeah.
So.
And you got Rubio right in the middle of it as well.
Right.
And it's
wait a minute. You've got, I'm glad you said that. You've got Rubio in the middle of it, who has been 10 toes down supporting Ukraine. And now as Secretary of State, Lil Marco, has to defend Trump's position.
Right.
How's that playing in the press room?
Well, I wasn't in there today. That's actually, it'll be interesting to see what happens when we come back. The president, of course, is going off to Mar-a-Lago, but these are the conversations that we're going to be having through the weekend, because don't forget, all of the congressional members that were lining up, when Biden was leaving office, one of the biggest questions was what's going to happen with the funding for Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And you had congressmen and women on the left and the right that wanted to continue the funding for Ukraine. I don't know how this is going to shake up. I'm curious to see what will happen when Trump starts to look to end these talks in talks of war in Ukraine, again, how will they line up over his rhetoric? Because we're going to see some of their same words that they had said before thrown right back at him. And now Rubio is one of his top cabinet officials, and he's being faced with this difficult task of persuading America's allies that this administration and Russia are going to be doing this in good faith. What does that look like? Even during, there were assurances I guess they thought they had during the Biden administration about Ukraine. What's going to happen to that? How will this conflict be resolved? What's going to happen with Kyiv? What type of conversations are going to come forth?
Ebony McMorris, AURN White House correspondent. Thank you, dear. The audience loved you. And again, let them know where they can find you.
You can find me across social media at Ebony McMorris. You can catch all of my interviews. I focus on what's happening in Black communities from the U.S. overseas. I want to help join in connecting the dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon.
Thank you, dear. Greatly appreciate it. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and look forward to having you back.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Same to you, dear. Take care.
Take care.
All right. Hey, I got to thank Ebony. Marvelous as always for joining me today. Thank you all so much for listening to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon. Greatly appreciate it. Stay tuned. Garland Nixon will be with us on Monday, and we'll be talking a lot about the latest developments in Ukraine as Hegseth went from NATO to the to Germany and to the NATO meeting in Germany. So we'll have him with us on Monday. Please follow and subscribe, share the show, provide your reviews, follow us on social media. All the links are below in the show description. And remember that this is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge, because talk without analysis is just chatter. And we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See y'all on Monday. Until then, I am Dr. Wilmer Leon. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay warm. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.